What's up guys, here we are once again, but this time a short video just to talk about 3 important topics that you shall not forget and that will be in your IMAT biology questions. So let's not lose time, let's jump into it. Alright gang, so this is it. This will be a short playlist that I will post on my YouTube channel. I'm sure you're preparing yourself, I'm sure you're studying, but sometimes you just forget the small details and IMAT will try to trick you. So let's take a look at that. But first of all, if you're enjoying this content and you think it's relevant, please subscribe to the channel. There will be a lot of video coming in and I'm trying to hit 100 subscribers till the end of this month. And don't forget to leave a like button. This will send a message to YouTube saying, hey, this is nice, this is interesting, let's keep going. Alright, now properly in, what are we going to talk about? 3 main structures, the mitochondria, the chloroplasts, and the circular DNA. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with these structures and there's a lot of things that we can talk about, but I just want to call attention to a couple details that most of it we forget, but it's super important to keep in mind during the whole process of doing the IMAT biology questions. Alright, so first obvious but not so obvious statements about plant cells. All plant cells have mitochondria, okay, but not all plant cells have chloroplasts. Whoa, wait a minute. We usually tend to think about plants with, okay, plants, chloroplasts, animals, mitochondria. But you gotta think that these two structures are important and they can be together in the same cell, but not all plant cells has chloroplasts. Let's break this down. So the key facts that I want you to keep in mind is that all plant needs energy. So they have mitochondria. The mitochondria is a very important organelle that all eukaryote cells have, okay? So yes, plants, they don't move as much as we do, but they are beings and they grow. As you know, we have huge trees and they need a big amount of energy for this metabolism, so they will require a lot of mitochondria, okay? But they also have chloroplasts. This part is easy. We usually associate plants to chloroplasts because of the photosynthesis, but it's important to remember that they have both most of the times, okay? The mitochondria and the chloroplasts, they are complementary. So one will produce energy that they need for the metabolism, the ATP. We're talking about the mitochondria. But remember that we're going to need sugar for that. And who's going to produce the sugar? It's going to be the chloroplast. Now, only cells exposed to light will perform photosynthesis. And that makes sense because the light is a very important ingredient for the photosynthesis. And if you think about the roots, for example, they are underground. There's no light there. So usually some cells of the roots don't have chloroplasts. Or if they do have chloroplasts, they will not perform photosynthesis. It's important to keep this in mind. Other parts of the plants might not perform photosynthesis. If you think about a tree, for example, or the trunk of a tree, that thick part of the tree, the cork, it will not perform photosynthesis. An easy way to remember is just to think that usually green parts of a plant perform photosynthesis and other parts don't, like roots and trunk of trees, okay? This is a key fact. Let's take a look at how IMAT might ask you this. So there's a question from 2018 and it says, an organism in bright sunlight has the following features. It consists of some cells with organelles which contains guanine. So we're talking about a plant. First statement tells us this. All cells contain molecules such as ATP, ADP, and NAD. Makes sense because we're talking about metabolism. So here we have information that could be related to the mitochondria. Some cells release carbon dioxide by diffusion all the time. Okay, letter 8. It is made up of cells which all contains mitochondria and all chloroplasts. Remember, if you're talking about a plant, it's important to remember that not all cell contains chloroplasts. The last video about biology that I recorded, I was talking about red flags. Words like all, usually they tend to be wrong because biology is full of exceptions. This is one of the exceptions as well. There are cells in a plant that doesn't have chloroplasts. So this is wrong. You can cross out of your option. B, it is a photosynthetic, but some cells which only respire. It makes sense. It is a photosynthetic because it does have guanine, okay, but has some cells which only do respiration. So letter B is what we're looking for. The other options will just be structured for you. If you want to take a look, if you have any questions about these, just leave a comment below and we can talk about it. 2019. Which of the following statements about the metabolism of a plant is or are correct? 1. CO2 is produced during the day. CO2 is produced at night. The CO2 produced can be used by the plant. Okay, these are the first 3 statements, and we want to know which one are correct. The third one, usually it's the easy one to spot because we're talking about plants. The CO2 is important for the photosynthesis. So yes, it can be used by the plant, but does the plant produce CO2? Usually tend to think about plants as being a producer of O2, of oxygen, right? And that's right, because that's what happens on photosynthesis. But don't forget, they also have mitochondria, so they also do cell respiration. And what is one of the products of the cell respiration? CO2. And when does it happen? At day and at night, all the time. It needs to breathe all the time, just like us. All the 3 statements here are correct. This leads us to letter E. Okay, second statement here that is not that obvious, but is important to keep in mind. All eukaryotic cells have circular DNA. Okay, wait a minute. Circular DNA we usually associate to bacteria, and that's not incorrect, that's correct. Bacteria has circular DNA, but eukaryotic cells as well, all of them. Let's see why. We gotta remember that the organisms that are composed by eukaryotic cells are fungus, animal cells, and plants. Okay, and all these cells here contain mitochondria or contain chloroplasts or contain both of them. And these two important structures here, they have circular DNA. There's a very interesting theory that is not a theory. Usually biology, we use this name theory to state fact that says that back then in the past, they used to be regular bacteria living on their own. But at some point, they decided to associate it with cells that we know now as a eukaryotic in a symbiotic way. So they're just helping each other. And that remains until now. So these two structures are considered bacteria that are so adapted to these cells that they're not even able to live outside the cells anymore. Okay, so they can reproduce themselves. They have their own DNA. And I'm sure all of you guys know about that. But we often forget, and the IMAT questions will try to trick you with this. So let's check how this can be seen in the IMAT questions. Okay, so IMAT 2017, question 33. 4 students recorded different structures that they thought were found in a healthy animal kidney cell and a typical bacterial cell. So they're comparing 2 different cells, and they make statements. We want to know which students gave totally correct answers here. Okay, so first student says, in animal cells, we found DNA in a nucleus. That's correct. The second one, bacterial cells has 70S these organelles. The ribosomes are very important, but they're different in size, okay? So yes, this one is correct because the bacterial cells contain the 70S type of ribosomes. So student 1 is saying something that is true. All right, the second student, an animal cell, he found cell wall present. Cell wall present, these usually are only present in fungus or plants. So in an animal cell, you will never find cell wall. So this guy is in a different planet. Second statement he made, bacterial cells. A mitochondria present in a bacterial cell, that does not make sense. They do not have mitochondria. They have process of producing ATP on their own, but they do not have organelles such as mitochondria. Okay, the only organelle you will find in a bacteria will be the ribosomes. That's it. The third student, called the animal cell, said, oh, I found 70S ribosome presence. Remember what we just talked? So just forget about this boy. He's in a different world as well. The fourth student said the animal cells contain circular DNA, and the bacterial cells plasmid presence. Which students are totally correct on their answers, okay? We know that the first one is correct and the fourth one as well because all animal cells contain circular DNA. And bacteria also contain circular DNA and also plasmid presence. So this leads us to letter E. Question 40. Which of the following statement about a neuron in a healthy human is or are correct? First statement, transport across its cell's membrane can occur by exocytosis. Second statement, it contains a gene that codes for insulin. Third statement, it contains circular DNA. So which one is correct? All of them. Okay, first of all, transport across the cell membrane can occur by exocytosis. Yeah, we know that this is a feature from the neurons. They do this very often. So the first one is completely correct. It contains circular DNA. The third, this is the topic of the video, so you might know, yeah, this is correct. But what about the second one? This is also very tricky if you think about it, because what does insulin has to do with a neuron? Usually insulin is associated to the pancreas, right? But you got to remember that all cells has the same information in their nucleus, but they don't express the information at the same way. So even though that they have the whole information, they will only express what is interesting for them. The rest will be just condensed, okay? So saying that, all the informations here are correct. 1, 2, and 3. Question 23 from the IMAT 2020. Which of the following healthy cells contain a circular DNA? This is easy. Escherichia coli. Okay. The Escherichia coli is a bacteria. E. coli is very present in our intestine. It's very important as well. And if it's a bacteria, it does have circular DNA. Saccharomyces cerevisiae, Latin name. So we're talking about a fungus. Yeast fungus does have circular DNA, as we spoke earlier, and a human liver cell. Oh, so all of these options here has circular DNA. So 1, 2, and 3. This could be a tricky one if you don't keep this in mind, but if you do have this in mind, it's going to be so easy and you're going to answer this in like 19 seconds. Okay, so these are the information that I wanted to bring to you. A quick recap is that all plant cells has mitochondria. Not all plant cells has chloroplasts, and eukaryote cells, all of them have circular DNA because of the mitochondria and because of the chloroplast. Okay, so it's important to review some of the facts and do the past exams to see which are the type of questions that we can often see in the exam. Okay, as more as we are familiar with the IMAT questions, that goes for chemistry, that goes for mathematics, that goes for every single subject, more confident and prepared we are for those. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if it was helpful, don't forget to leave it a like and subscribe to the channel. That will help me a lot. I intend to record another sections of super tips for the IMAT. We're almost there, and I'll see you guys in the next one.